I was very lucky in 2007 that my boss realised I was dabbling with various things like blogs and video and stuff like that. So he created a job for me that I applied for and successfully got, so that worked out well. And it was to become an information specialist, which I already was, but with the term electronic networks by the side of it, which then makes me feel a bit more like I'm IT. But since then, I've had pretty much a free rein. I've been very lucky that I've had a free rein to explore a lot of these technologies, these tools, and trying to understand like a pedagogy for why we would use them, because I'm also involved in teaching, I lecture as well, and I do a lot of writing. So I've got a very good job in some way, but also quite a horrendous job in the other, because I have to dabble with thousands and thousands of different technologies and different problems, and my head spins, and people come and say, do you know how this laptop works? Can you tell me about copyright? What's social media? So it's very ill-defined at times. So this is really 23 kind of hacks. These are various tools, some of them that we've already been mentioned, you'll know, so apologies for anyone who's been taught how to suck eggs. But also they may give you various kind of reasons as to why I use it. If anyone is using the SoCreative app, I don't know if people are encouraged to use that. There is a classroom where I've put some questions in if people want to answer them. There's just 4 questions, and the class is called Tattersall class. So double T, double L. So if you go in there, we can kind of see what kind of people's feelings are. So as we know, and why you're here, you've got some feeling that things are changing within academia, and academia is changing, and it's changing for good. It's going in one way. You know, we are being pulled along by the web. The web is a large part of this, and we can see what's happening in the last few years with massive online open courses, open access. We're seeing how things like the ref is changing, big data, again becoming, you know, more and more important, and the term Altmetrics, at which point we now need to shut this presentation down because I've mentioned the A word. The problem that you guys have is there's a lot of technology out there. Which ones do you use? Why should you use it? Now, I work with learning technologists, and their job is to encourage teachers, lecturers to use technology, and they give them a pedagogy. They don't just say use that, go away, let's see how you go on. They have to have a reason why, because, you know, they're busy people, researchers, busy people. So you need to understand why you do this. You need to understand what's the reasons for doing this. And I kind of, when I was doing this presentation, I've been thinking about this for a while, and this is not totally inclusive, but my experiences over the last 8 years of dealing with academics, from professors down to early career researchers, is that not everything fits with everyone. So not everyone benefits in the same way. I've benefited in very different ways than, say, the Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Science has at the University of Sheffield. He uses Twitter. He will use it in a different way that I do. He doesn't need to use it to get a journal publication, but he can use it to firm up, you know, kind of contacts and communication. So we have lots of different tools here. These slides will be available after, so you can kind of digest it after, and I'm not going to drill in too deep. But it's all about finding which tools work for you, where you are in your career, and not everything will work for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss 23 ideas and tools for you to try out. These revolve around the idea of producing things, communicating, doing it while you're mobile, because the amount of academics I know who've got tablet devices just to play Candy Crush and check email. It's 500 quid thrown out the window in my eyes, because there's lots of things they can use it for. Also show you how to measure, you know, as Nadine mentioned earlier about the Altmetrics, the different measurements, and I'll explain a bit more of that, and just how you can stay on track. Because I'm an information specialist, I'm very interested in things like information overload or information obesity and things like that. And as Clay Shirky, a professor from New York, says, New York University, there's no such thing as information overload, just bad filters. So hopefully give you some good filters to deal with it. So I created a load of animations, 42 animations, did this over the course of 2 weeks, and I did a lot of work as well on top of this. These took very little time for me to do. But I came across a tool called Adobe Voice, which allowed me to make very short 90-second animations that explain a technology or an idea. Because what I found with my job is, it's a waste of time me putting half a day across with one researcher trying to solve the problems. It doesn't work, because they may go away and not do anything with it. So what I do is I try and capture the people that are interested. So I propose ideas and then let them come to me, and then let's spend their time. Because I'm a finite resource. There's one of me in my faculty, and there's really one of me in my university, to be honest. You know, there's no one who kind of does what I do in the university on the kind of level that I do. So number one, You know, as we're going to hear from Inga, blogging, how important blogging is. Blog about what you know. You'll all know something. You'll all be an expert in your area. And sometimes what I hear is that people worry about, well, if I start a blog, will anyone come to it? Well, they will do if you get it out there. You know, the amount of people I see who create a resource and they leave it there and they sit there and they expect people to run to it. Like our websites, like our university websites, we expect people kind of get up in the morning and go, oh, I wonder what's happening at the University of Sheffield. They don't anymore. You know, social media's happened and they can't get that around their heads, really. So, you know, it takes time. Get it out there, find the networks, but also there's loads of blogs out there that may want you to guess right. So there's already an audience there. So a good example is the London School Economics Impact blog. I've written for them a few times. If I had wrote that for the ScHARR Library blog, it might have got tweeted 20 times, read a couple hundred times, but it got tweeted over 400 times because it was the right audience. So don't be afraid to kind of go to them and say, I've got an idea, can I write for you? You know, and blogging is a quick and simple win. And it's a good way to kind of change from that rigmarole of academic writing. It frees you a little bit, helps you kind of percolate those ideas. So look to see where you can do it. If you can't do it yourself, go see where you could perhaps write something. And you'll find there will be a blog out there for you. Also, your presentations, you know, people go to conferences, they present, they go away, job done. But the slides are there, they're there to share afterwards. People will find an interest in them and get them out. And you can get this presentation has had over 4,000 views of mine from a conference online information in 2012. So, you know, that took 5 minutes to upload, put a bit of description in there, put some tags in there, and just get it online. It takes very little time. You can easily factor these into your workload. Rethink your posters. Academic posters are very dull, I know, and they make you make them dull, and they basically get you to get the whole paper and put it onto the poster, and that's how it works. But if there are options to make them more vibrant, or even just in your department, get some of your research replicated onto nice posters in your department, make it so your visitors see your work, you know, so they can turn up and see the groundbreaking research that you guys are doing. Turn your work into just nice, straightforward infographic posters. It just looks good for you, that people can instantly get a feel of what you do. There's loads of tools out there that you can use, and if you don't want to use those, you can just use PowerPoint. Because I did this for a conference. One of our guys came to me and he said, I need something that shows all the research we do, because I work in health research. So I want to know something, all the conditions we do. And I says, well, can you categorise them as best you can? And I know some health conditions, the whole body, so it's very hard to do. And I thought, what I'll do is I'll turn them into some kind of London Underground tube map. And I just did that in PowerPoint. So you can make posters just a little bit more creative if you want. And they had really good feedback. You know, they came back, they said people were really kind of, rather than just having a poster, just have this long list. It's just a very nice visual way to do it.
Sorry, excuse me. How did you thematise that?
How did I thematise it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just created it from scratch. I drew it. I just drew the whole thing. Oh, sorry, categories. I got the researcher to do it for me. Okay. Sorry. Yes.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's typical. It was a typical academic. No offence, because I'm half academic. But it was a typical situation where I'm presenting at a conference next week. I need a poster, so I didn't have a lot of time. And if I had the time, I would have actually made the roots all kind of connect in the right kind of way, so it was more like a body. But and then I actually was a bit concerned I might get ripped off for copyright, so I made it look slightly away from the London Underground, but just enough that you know it is the London Underground. Yeah. So I kind of thought, oh, well, it's more like the Berlin Underground.
How often do you prepare posters for academic stuff? I've never heard of that resource being available.
No, I don't, and I'm not offering my services. But at this particular conference, it was a very big international conference, and we'd been blabbing on about how they should do the posters a little bit different. So when you do that, then they come and say, let's put your money where your mouth is. There is a lot of resistance to this because they know when they've got to, when you go, you've got to do it in the way that they often tell you, and it has to look like a load of text and then some very bad pixelated images in the corner. So I don't offer that service, or if I do, it's £100 an hour. So that's that sorted. Make a video. It's very scary. You don't have to be in the video. Here's a good example. Has anyone seen Jove, Journal of Online Visual Experiments? So a lot of lab work kind of, gets written up into papers, and then fellow scientists try to replicate what that research is. And they can't always get it right. They read the instructions. It's like when you try and do something, program your Fitbit or whatever, it doesn't do exactly what you want it to do. Making a video of it, they can see the experiment actually take place and replicate it. There's various things out there like Dance Your PhD. People are doing all kinds of wonderful things using video. It's not as scary as you think it is. You don't have to be this kind of Hollywood star, but it's just a very good example about how people are now translating their work, because video is the dominant format really on the web now. It's in terms of the kind of amount of data that passes over the web. In America there's a large percentage of people sort of like age kind of early 20s to 25 that use such as YouTube as their TV network now. They're not watching television in the same way that I was. Or even making animation. This is a tool called Sparkle, and you may have seen it's the one where the kind of the hand goes around kind of animating. It's a free tool for a week at least, but you have to pay for it. But I made an animation as part of a MOOC I studied on in 2013. I was given a piece of coursework and I decided I'm going to make one of these videos, and it's had nearly 9,000 views. That was just a piece of student work I did, talking about digital natives, digital immigrants. So there's tools out there that you can use if you don't want to be in the video to kind of showcase your skills and ability. And if you've got an iPad, Adobe Voice makes wonderful little short animations. It's free, or there's lots of others out there if you do a search for animation ones. Also, something that people don't do enough in sort of like, or certainly it's happening more, we're trying to lay summaries of your research. So people can understand it, because quite often when you're kind of communicating with a different audience, they perhaps one of the problems I see with researchers is they believe that everyone understands what they're on about, and they go, no, well, it makes sense to me, and it's this idea of if you sat down in a pub with a mate who'd not been to university and you talked about what you did, would they understand it? So think about this way of doing stuff, and writing a lay summary of your research, and sharing it out there across the social networks so people can see what you're doing. And also record a lay summary. Something you can do is if you write any publications, papers, perhaps get a colleague to sit down with you and just do a 5-minute interview. What was the purpose of this research? Or what's your research interests? What was your conclusions? What did you find? Record it on something like Audioboo, little free podcasting tool that record 10 minutes, and then you can embed it. So if you've got a blog, you can put your kind of links up to the paper, but also have like a little audio abstract. Get it on something like iTunes. Get a series going. It's not as scary as you think it is. Once you do it, And the thing is, with all this kind of stuff, you can produce it, but you don't have to share it. If you produce it and you're not happy with it, what have you lost? Just a bit of time by trying it out. Different ways of working. Collaborate live if you can. If any of you work at any institutions that use Google Docs, or obviously go and create your own Google account. And this is a paper that I wrote 2 years ago with 2 colleagues, and I forced them to use Google Docs. And we wrote this paper, which was published in this journal here, Health Information and Libraries Journal, and I made them write it synchronously. So I put an hour in the diary every couple of days, and we sat online and we wrote it together. And it sounds a bit weird, but if one of you is writing the methodology and one of you is writing up the results, because we did a survey. If someone's writing up the results, we all sat there at the same time typing away. That paper, which was probably 5,000 to 6,000 words, was written in a couple of weeks. We knew what we were talking about because it was some work that we'd done, but we forced ourselves, and that kind of peer working worked really, really well. The only issue is the referencing. So towards the end, we dropped it into Word, and then we did all the referencing with some reference management package. So trying to think about different ways that you can work amongst yourselves to kind of help you get on doing things, because it is hard sitting down and writing and getting things going, but if someone's there with you, it gets you moving along a bit easier. Obviously, as we've already heard, Twitter is a brilliant tool. About half a year using Twitter in some capacity. And just to give you an example about the power of Twitter, for me, I was kind of following various people in early 2012, and I started seeing this word MOOC appear. And I thought, this is quite interesting. So I started doing a bit of research about MOOCs. I thought, well, these are going to happen. These are happening in America. They're going to happen here. Because my kind of job has a lot of kind of gut feelings, following things, seeing how things go on, you know. And the amount of times I sit in meetings, I sat in a meeting this week where a colleague was talking about, we need to do infographics. So I brought up a blog post from 6 years ago about doing infographics. And it's like, you know, 6 years ago you could have been doing this. With this, I saw there was something happening with MOOCs, and I thought these are going to happen. They're going to shake up education because it needs shaking up. All too often, I was seeing presentations of just bullet points, someone just reading them off, going through the motions. And so I spoke to my director of learning and teaching, who I got on with quite well, and I said, these are going to be great. Did a bit of research, was able to go back to her and talk to her about exactly what they were, how they were working, where they were happening. And we attended the GIST seminar in July 2012. She was taken by this. We got some money put aside and we created our own MOOCs, and we did 3 mini MOOCs at the sort of like early, mid 2013. I attended my first MOOC by Edinburgh on Coursera in early 2013. Thought, this is great, really enjoy it, people are going to like this. So we ran 3 MOOCs. One of them only had 1,500, 4,000, very little numbers compared to some of the ones in the US that have had 90, 100,000. But it was a success, and it made us really think about what we were doing. And we did it from a bit of an altruistic, experimental, excited, let's try and see how this works kind of way. And as a result of it, we ran the first MOOCs in the University of Sheffield. And the Russell Group universities all got on sort of like mid 2013, late 2013, and produced their first ones last year. If I'd not spotted the tweets, we would have perhaps been 3-4 months down the line. We could only run the MOOCs in January or June, because that was our kind of fallow periods in terms of teaching. You know, we can't neglect our masters and PhD students. So it would have been put back 6 months. By that time, university would have signed up. We would have missed the boat. We probably wouldn't have been the first, or would have been the same as the university. As a result, me and 7 of my colleagues got Senate awards at the university. So I'm now a member of the Learning Teaching Senate for the rest of my life. So I've been to a couple of swanky dinners. I got some money. I got some money to spend on technology because of a tweet. I can't put it down. I always say to my colleagues, we got that because of Twitter. I didn't find it out the air. I didn't kind of walk into the pub and someone go, do you see about MOOCs? You know, so... and Twitter has rewarded me several times like this, you know, by people saying, can you write an article for me? Because they see your presence. Can you do this for me? Would you come and speak here? So it does have its benefits. And in terms of when we were promoting our MOOCs, and again, this is the idea like with blogs, it's kind of piggybacking on other people, getting them to put your message across. So this was, if anyone knows Ben Goldacre, Bad Science, he tweeted about our MOOCs. And we saw a spike in the sign-up that day, you know, and he didn't just retweet, he wrote an original tweet. So that is the power of it. You know, Ben Goldacre's got, I think at the time he'd got about 550,000 followers. He's got more than that now, about 700,000. But what I would say is when I try and prescribe a technology to people, I don't say, here it is, go off and do it, because I don't think it works like that for most people. And then they get scared and they get put off. It's like having a bad meal in a restaurant, you'll never go back to that restaurant. So what I say to people is, it's a bit like, again, this comes from the health setting I work in, it's a bit like prescribing a medication. You know, if I prescribe Twitter, I need you to understand why you're going to use it. Yeah, you need to understand what the benefits are. You need to understand the side effects of it. Okay, that there are potential kind of downfalls, pitfalls if you don't do it right. If you get up one night at 1 o'clock at night and start drinking a bottle of vodka and start tweeting, that's not a good side effect. You need to understand that the benefits might take time. So people I've seen, senior academics, they set up a Twitter account, it's not doing anything for me. Well, it's because you've given it 2 weeks. What do you expect? Did you expect 10,000 people to suddenly come looking at you? You know, it's not going to happen. It might take a bit of time. You might need 2 courses. For me and other people, I started using Twitter years ago. I couldn't really get my head around it. So I kind of eased off. And then I went to a conference, gave a presentation, and suddenly saw everyone was tweeting about me. And that little narcissistic kind of element sat there, this is great. But it started getting me using it in a networking way and in a knowledge way. Twitter is a brilliant discovery engine. I had a power cut on Saturday, which blew our burglar alarm. I couldn't find out anywhere to Western Digital. Have we had a power cut? Was there a power cut? It was like a second. It was a surge. Neighbours didn't know of anything. Eventually, on the Western Digital Twitter, someone had tweeted from S42 Wingleworth, where I live, had they had a power cut, and they replied saying, yeah. It's just brilliant. It just spots these little things. But you may need a different intervention. If a certain social media technology doesn't work for you, you might need something else. So don't feel put off by the whole thing. It just might be that thing is not right for you at that time. And don't feel pressured to use it. Because as Nadine says, if you feel that pressure, if you say, oh, I've got a blog, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, it's not going to be any fun. Because the thing is, these tools, these technologies can be fun. They can make your working life a bit more enjoyable. Yeah? We work in a creative industry. We don't feel like we do at times, but I think we are in a creative industry. So it's about building this academic social club, because people look at social media in one dimension, and I always say to people, social media is like the real world. It's communities. If you go into that part of town or that part of town, you'll have a different conversation. It doesn't mean if you're on Twitter you have to listen to what Justin Bieber's saying, and that's what people kind of struggle to get their head around. It's different conversations. So another one, number 10, join the social network, and here's Piirus for you to look at. So go have a look at Piirus. Again, it's a way to connect with people that got the same ideas as you. Build that network, that personal learning network, and see what they're saying. Build those collaborations. It may be just to discuss something. It may eventually build up to something wonderful, like a piece of work or even a relationship. You never know. I'm not saying it would do. But social networks are not just about who you know. It's what they know as well. Yeah, it's what they know, it's what they're saying, it's what they're sharing. All these things help push your career up, all that kind of knowledge and discovery. It's about social capital. It's helping your career. It's helping your career because you'll know more and more about what's going on, and your colleagues who aren't using it won't. There's a conversation happening right now that you're interested in. It's whether you want to be involved in it. And like I say, different tools have different connections. So, my colleague over there, Claire Beecroft, I know on a personal level, so we're connected on Facebook, but we're also connected on Mendeley, Twitter and LinkedIn. Whereas this colleague here, Andrew Booth, who was my boss years ago, he's the one who gave me the job 8 years ago, we're connected on Mendeley and LinkedIn. But I wouldn't say we're friends, we're acquaintances, so we're not on Facebook. So it's that feeling of don't feel obliged. And Nature Publishing did some research into how scholars were using the social network, and we can see here, the main things that they were doing was to follow discussions, comment on research, post their own content, discover peers, also discover recommended papers. So there's lots of benefits out there, as well as discovering jobs, tracking metrics, etc. So really, we have lots and lots of different tools for you to look at, and all of them offer different benefits. What I will say is, I was asked about 2 months ago by a professor who emailed me and said, do you know anyone who could do a talk on LinkedIn? I went, I can. I did one 4 years ago. You didn't come. And I did it, and I emailed him, and I saw him that day, and I said, you better come. Because I was working till 8 last night doing this presentation. And I did a search. The day he emailed me was 4 years to the day I delivered the talk on those tools. It was the exact same day. It was brilliant. And I said, ResearchGate, Academia.edu and LinkedIn, those 4 years, I don't think it's changed. I don't know what I've got out of it. I don't think I've got a ton out of it. LinkedIn's a bit different because, I work with health professionals, people like paramedics, or we work with the pharma industry. LinkedIn does have that because there is that connection with companies like Novartis and stuff like that. So there is that kind of use for us. Less so for ResearchGate, and it is, like I say, just posting your CV on. It's whether you want to use one or two and concentrate on them, or spread yourself further across. And Twitter, is a brilliant icebreaker tool and social network. Mendeley is a fantastic tool for reference management. It's a brilliant, brilliant tool. It's owned by Elsevier now, but we'll forget about that. But it's a massive database of research and research. About 3 million researchers, over 1 million papers, references on there. It's a fantastic tool. I better bob better because I'm sort of like we're kind of running behind time. But the main thing is don't be afraid to say no. If someone wants to connect with you and you don't want to, don't be afraid to say no. Don't have to. I see people feeling obliged that they've got to connect with people, that they have to make that connection. You don't. If they're not gonna, if you've got nothing in common, it's like when someone I went to school with in 1978 wants to be my friend and I saw them last time in 1978. I don't think I've got a lot in common with them apart from the school uniform I wore and perhaps that I might have chased the same girl around the playground. I don't know. But you don't have to feel obliged. I see people stopping using social networks because of that. You're in power, you're in charge. You decide who your networks are with. People understand. And if someone wants to be friends on Facebook at work and you don't want that kind of thing and it's a personal thing, then just point them towards where you will connect with them. And whether that's Piirus or LinkedIn or Mendeley, yeah, it's up to you. You decide how you do it. If you want to have work colleagues connecting where there's personal colleagues, then that's fine. You know, it's your choice. Another tool, number 11, About Me, is a great kind of collating tool for various links. So if you haven't got much of a presence, or if you haven't got even a staff page, or you haven't got any web presence, this is totally free. You can put your CV on, you can put your biography on, and then you can start to connect to your Twitter, to any links, your YouTube page, Vimeo, LinkedIn, anything else, and it can be a good hub to kind of showcase your kind of presence. Another little tip is to bite-size your content, because as Nadine says, everyone has an attention span. So if you can think about how you can logically break things up into short pieces, don't be afraid to make a video that's 90 seconds long, because if you only need 90 seconds, just use 90 seconds. I started a series in 2010 called Bite Size, ScHARR Bite Size, which has been replicated in different institutions, where I get people to present an idea, a technology in 20 minutes, and we give them cake as well. And it's all about just opening your mind up to possibilities. It's not about trying to teach you something, because people are increasingly busy these days, and that they don't want to put aside 4 hours for something they're not sure they're going to use. So at least just opening the possibilities. But you can do this with your own work. Think about how you can chunk it up. Think about how you can break down your publications and work and stuff like that into little bite-sized chunks that can mean more to different audiences. Mobile apps. Evernote is a great tool on the tablet. People sit there taking notes on laptops and tablets. Students do, you know. Well, this is great because you can take notes, you can take photographs of a slide, you can record the sound, you can record an hour. You can also web clips, so you can create these scrapbooks of information. So it's a much underused tool, and certainly anyone here who teaches, it's good to encourage your students to use that. Develop yourself on the go. I think podcasting's hugely underplayed. It's going through a second golden era for me, but there's lots of tools out there. iTunes U, I've got a collection up there, ScHARR Bite Size on the Sheffield iTunes U. You know, Future Learn. You know, there's some brilliant courses. I did one on web science. It was fantastic. University of Southampton. So there's stuff out there that you can kind of go and discover and add to your CV. And so, you know, you go for a job interview and they say, what's a MOOC? You can tell them what a MOOC is. You've done a MOOC, cutting edge learning. And attend anything like you see TEDx. You know, I go to the TEDx Sheffield, watch the TED events, listen to the podcasts. Kind of, it's a good way on the go. You know, because I'm concerned about how people could do stuff like this effectively. Well, if you make it mobile, that's a good way that you can learn on the go. Download the podcast, listen to the stuff, and you know, kind of build your own knowledge base. Say Mendeley already touched on. It is available on iOS. The Android app is coming soon. I can't understate what a great tool that is. I'm an advisor for Mendeley. Have been for about 5 years. And it's a fantastic company. Haiku Deck is a great way to make your presentations. Very visual. Do them off your tablet. Really nice. Make you rethink about how you deliver your presentation. So when you give, so again, I don't want to use the word novelty factor, but novelty does work sometimes. And if you can suddenly raise, oh, what's this they're using? I'm going to talk to them. This is good. They're thinking outside the box. Because I think that's going to be, you know, we're going to need to do that more and more as we go on. Try and think outside the box. There is this fear of failure. People are scared of failure. But if you take the chances, you will reap the rewards. So Altmetrics, altmetric.com. There are various Altmetric tools out there. I'm actually writing a book on Altmetrics, Facet Publishing, with someone from Mendeley and altmetric.com, someone who used to work for JISC. And I'm very keen about Altmetrics. I'm very keen about open research. I'm very keen that we are transparent in what we do and we share it and we try and make the world just a nicer, happier, friendlier place, really. And so really...
Sorry, can I just ask a question about that? I kind of, I'm a little bit sceptical of research metrics because it strikes me that there's a sort of bit of a tendency towards annihilating quality with quantity.
Yes.
So can you kind of link Altmetrics with a happier world you talked about?
Yes, I'm going to, yes.
Right.
So, well, what we see is in the previous, say, let's say this is year 0, how research has been measured, you know, via citations, impact scores. It was all about journal publications, conferences. Well, there's lots and lots of stuff that wasn't getting kind of measured. You know, blogs, videos, data sets, really useful data sets, just completely ignored. And the point about Altmetrics isn't really about bean counting. It's not about, oh, you've got 100 tweets, therefore it is worth 1 cite or something like that. You know, and there's evidence out there that people cite things they never read. A lot of papers never get cited, so that model's working perfectly well. And also, you know, the impact score, the H index, very unfair. You could write the best paper ever and have an H index score of nothing because it's the only paper you've done. So these systems haven't been great. Altmetrics aren't the answer to that. I don't think it's just going to be really hard to kind of get that correct gauge. But what it does, it starts to kind of identify things that we've not been identifying. That's things like audiences. You know, like Nadine showed with her blog, she can see who's reading her blog. You didn't know who was citing your papers. You didn't know where your paper was being shared. Things like Mendeley, you know, shows you how many people have a paper in their collection, and the top one has around 76,000 readers. If I was that author, I'd go to my boss and go, I don't know what that's worth in citations, but that's blooming good. You know, 76,000 people have got my paper. So the old model was journal impact factor, citations, and now we look at things like download counts, page views, mentions in news reports, start thinking about impact, which can be a bit blurred at times, but you know, if your research is getting out there into the media as well, you know, isn't that a good thing? Hopefully. And mentions in social media, mentions in blogs, reference manager readers. So it's not just about kind of bean counting, it's about trying to discover where your work's gone, taking an interest about those potential collaborations globally.
But can you stop university managers from using it for bean counting?
No, you see where it's being blogged about. So you get that instant feedback you weren't getting before.
Yeah, but it can be about something totally superficial. If you did a paper on clever cats, you get millions of tweets and blogs about it.
But in terms of the attention coming towards your work, is that not a bad thing?
Well, if it's a totally superficial thing that the media pick up because it seems curious. Well, no, I would do it on clever cats because I wanted to get all his measures up.
But if you did that, social media is very open. At some point, everyone will look at you and go, well, that's a waste of my time and you're a waste of my time. Because if you're going to try and do that, like this Kardashian index, you know, social media is a very, very open thing, isn't it? So if you start to play it, people will spot it. You know, we spot researchers who are citing themselves, republishing their papers and doing all. You know, let's not say that this game playing is a new thing. It's existed previously, and we do see people writing papers, citing papers they've never read, and then we have a lot of research that's never cited. So is that rubbish research? Never been cited? Was it pointless? Was that a waste of money? Was it a waste of time? It must be useful to someone out there, surely. Doesn't these tools facilitate it getting out there? I don't know. It depends on that piece of research. But it depends on the researcher as well. What do they want to do with it? But the idea now of publishing a paper and putting it in a journal and leaving it there for the people to go and get crazy about is so 1975. Do you know what I mean? it's kind of changed, but it's we have to think about it as scholarly communication. We can't leave it down to the publishers to communicate what we do, because they don't. They're too busy counting the cash. What we're going to think about is doing it ourselves, communicating what we do to a global world. We're now connected globally. You do research in the UK about malaria. Why don't we let people in Africa know? They use social media, you know. So it's trying to open it up. We're still finding our feet. It's not the silver bullet. So we have to move on from that. It's not a silver bullet. It's not going to fix what's wrong with academia, but at least it's getting us discussing it and kind of moving it on. So, and I think it's just a way of you getting credit for your work out there as well. So what Altmetrics look at, they look at over 500 news sites. They look at post-publication peer review. They look at reference management tools. They look at things like F1000, Reddit, YouTube, and they look at social media and blogs. So it digs into the data. So it shows you, so here's something about a dinosaur, and we can see which news outlets have actually looked at it, which ones have covered it. So that's useful for them. They wouldn't have known that without this, unless they started searching Google News, and that would not have probably pulled up half of those up maybe. So it gives a score. I'm not so interested in the score, because I'm not as interested in things like that, but we are kind of obsessed with this idea of numbers and figures and measurements. But it shows you how that donut relates to these colours on here. So the more colours you've got in there, the more ways it's being kind of shared and accessed. And again, it allows you to see globally, again, where the percentage of people, so the second one is Japan in this particular piece of research. So that must be interesting to the people who've published that. People in Japan are interested in their work. And there is a tool that researchers can use. They can put a little bookmarklet they can install from altmetric.com, which will then allow them to kind of bring up the little Altmetric for any publication that they put up, you know, including their own. Impact Story is another tool. This was created by the guy who actually termed Altmetrics. And we try not to use the word Altmetrics anymore, and that's a problem for me because I've got a book that's got it in the title. But I like to think of it as alternative indicators, because one of the great problems that people had in the traditional academic setting was they saw it as something, let's get rid of that way of measuring things and let's do it that way. And it's never been about that. It's about supplementing. It's about alternative indicators. So Jason Priem, who coined the phrase Altmetrics. So it shows you where they kind of look at the actual kind of data. They look at citations, editorials, even Wikipedia mentions delicious bookmarks. So it's a different way of looking at where the research is. Then there's Figshare, a way for you to upload your data sets, your work, again, get that recognition. I'm wearing a Figshare t-shirt, but I just fancied wearing a new t-shirt. I've never worn it before, so I'm not doing it to promote them. So I've got the t-shirt already. So. Number 20, join a conversation. A lot more happening around post-publication peer review. Some people believe that is the true way of measuring research, that people actually comment on everyone else's research and then people can correct them. So they go, oh, we did this, and we actually found something totally different. You know, they wouldn't have known that until someone came in and made that comment. You know, social media allows us to comment on other people's work. It's whether you want to take that plunge, you know. Once you're out there, you've got to back up what you say. If you're going to go in and say someone's research is rubbish, you've got to say why. You know, John Peel, the DJ, used to hate it when someone would send me like saying, play something good. And he'd say, well, tell me what good is. You can't just say that, you know, so be critical. And you've got to be prepared for comments. So here's something I wrote for the conversation about peer review. And the first reply I got was that. The first line, religion is to blame here. You know, you think, oh, you know, but I, you know, it's a good comment, and I replied to it. I made the decision to reply to that comment. Like I say, it wasn't critical of me, so it's fine. But it was an interesting comment. But you've got to be prepared to see what comes along and whether you're going to kind of deal with it. Quickly, as from the information side of things, tell you how to, tell you to use technologies. We tell you to go off and do all this stuff, but you've got to do it in a way that is fluid, part of your role, the way that isn't going to distract you. So try and cut down distraction. One of the biggest things these days, email. Everyone's email box just kind of overflowing. You've got loads of subscriptions you no longer want. So a good one is Unroll Me.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic tool, and it'll bring up all your subscriptions, and you can just go and you'll stop getting them.
Sorry, what's it called?
It's called Unroll Me.
Yes.
It's a fantastic tool, and it will just get rid of lots and lots of those subscriptions that you just delete the email every day. Delete. Just do it in one go. It's quite cathartic. Form a peer support group. I started something called Right Club at ScHARR. Anyone recognise the film? Come on. Yeah, first rule of Right Club, you do not talk at Right Club. Second rule of Right Club, you do not talk at Right Club. So I get researchers and me, because I've got this book to write and I've got a paper to write. So we sit together in this little library, about 8 of us, and we write for just 2 hours, once a week. Various people come and go and stuff like that. We do it in absolute silence, and it allows people who work in big shared spaces to get that silence, but it's also the peer pressure of doing the writing. And I've started a Blue Peter totalizer in the space in the library, and we started in January, and at the moment we're just above 30,000 words in total. So I say to people, how many words have you done roughly? A lot of people don't come in and write, they'll do things like data analysis, so I don't count that. But it's just a bit of fun, but it's helping us. Everyone's saying it's getting stuff done they didn't do. And just finally, some productivity apps. Just try and do a few different things. So like in the morning for the first hour, don't check your email. It's a great thing to do. It's really hard. It's really, really hard to do, but do it. Just try and do something in an hour. And this one down here, eat a frog. Has anyone ever heard the term eat a frog? It's basically do something that you would really not want to do, that you want to put off. So, it could be a bid proposal, it could be a job application, something I'll do it at 3 o'clock. You won't. 3 o'clock comes round, something else happens. Do it first thing in the morning, because the feeling after doing it at 10 o'clock and you've not checked your emails and you've completed something is just so good for the rest of the day. You can put your feet up and that's it. But no, seriously, it's just a very good thing to do, a good mentality. You feel good about yourself. Use an app like 3030 to plan your day. There's loads of little apps where you can kind of put a list in and it'll tell you to move on to the next task. It takes a bit of discipline, but it's a good way to get things done and to push on. There's a thing called the Pomodoro technique where you use a little egg timer. So you kind of give yourself 25 minutes. Right, I'm going to do this for 25 minutes. My old boss, another boss, she does this, and she works very disciplined to that, and it's a way that she gets things done. Things like do things differently. Have a walking meeting. Get up from, sitting at a desk is so unhealthy, and I know this. I need to lose this weight, but get up and have a walking meeting. If it's just with a colleague, if it's with your boss out at a supervision meeting, get up, walk around the campus for half an hour. It's work. It's just you're doing it in a different way. This is the problem with things like social media is not work. Going for a walking meeting, it's so hippie-ish. It's not work. It's work. It's carbon neutral. You're not taking any space up. It's healthy. It's great. Also, something that really is becoming so much more into academia, things like mindfulness and meditation. Meditation is brilliant, because when you're at the coalface of research and you're working 8, 10, 12 hours a day, you're getting burnt out, your brain's getting frazzled, take out 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just sit, meditate. You'll come back fresh, especially when you are juggling lots of jobs and you start using lots of little technologies. Try and bring a bit of balance back as well. It helps you kind of deal with things like that. So really, everyone likes lists every evening. So a few recommendations. If you haven't, go get yourself an Orchid account. It's an Orchid ID. What it is, it gives you a unique electronic kind of tag that will stay with you throughout your career. So if your name's John Smith, it's a way of setting you from all the other John Smiths. If you change your name through marriage, I know a lot of academics keep their maiden name, but if you do change your name, again, it's that way that ties up those two identities. So, and it's totally free. It's just a good way to do this. Also, get your content, get your papers, any kind of data sets. Give them a DOI, a unique digital object identifier. So, if the location of something moves, at least it can still be found with that identifier if you tag it wherever it is. So it's a way of making it found. Google Scholar profile, if you've got time, update as Google Scholar profile, because a lot of people search Google Scholar. It's good to see a face to the name, to the papers. It adds an extra element to your profile. It takes very little time, 5-10 minutes. Try Twitter at least just to see what's going on. Use it as a search engine, as a knowledge base. And at some point you might want to feel like you want to engage and have those conversations. you know, pretty much most people in there within our area of work are fairly nice, I think. You'll find the odd one that isn't, just avoid them. And just remember, you know, get your presentations on SlideShare. Think about things like copyright. There are things like Creative Commons that will help you make your presentations more visual and copyright compliant. And just remember, you're all experts in something. I'm certain of that. You've got to know something, all of you. So just try and find an outlet to get it out there. You know, have a bit of confidence and try not to think about, you know, failure. This is attributed to Einstein. Apparently, it was someone else who said it. It's really hard to find out who said this quote, but Einstein usually gets it. I think it's a woman who said it, actually. But it's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So just keep that in mind. And you can contact me on Twitter. I don't know if anyone has I asked a couple of questions on So Creative, so I don't know. So I got a couple of responses. So I asked what barriers prevent you from being a digital academic, and 50% of the answer said, don't think I have the time. 25% said other, so if you want to approach me, what the other is, if you want to come see me. And 25% said lack of time. The next question I said, why would you want to use digital tools as part of your career? 14% said because they're fun. Oh, that's no bad thing. 14% said to improve collaboration. 43% said to improve visibility of me and my work, which is great. 14% said I think it's something I should do. And 14% because others are doing it. And again, do you think academia should be more transparent and share what it does via social media? 67%, we had 4 respondents, you can figure this out. 67% said yes, and 33%, sorry, we had 3 respondents. I'm not a mathematician, just to say, or a statistician. 33% said no, not sure, sorry. And then, would you put post-publication open reviews on someone else's research? And 67% said maybe, depends on who and what, and 33% said no. So hopefully that was useful. Like I say, if you go and do a search for the ScHARR vids research hacks, you'll find loads of little animations with me waffling on. I'm sorry I can't do anything about me, but the animations are nice.
Yeah, there are loads and loads of different forums for academics to upload research and so forth. You've mentioned quite a lot of them: Academia, Edu, ResearchGate, Orchid, and so on and so on. It takes an awful lot of time to repeatedly upload the same information and remember to keep on uploading new information to all of these. Like you've got 50 odd publications, it takes a long time. So have you got any advice about that? Or like even which one is best?
Well, I think Mendeley is a good one because the fact that people will save it into their Mendeley account, and there's a lot of research been done into Mendeley as to whether saves lead to citations. So at least there's a potential end product by getting it into Mendeley. It is very hard because the way it's going is that we're getting more and more technologies. We're not suddenly going to go, right, that's it, we've got enough, stop. It's just going to keep snowballing, sadly, and that worries me. You know, as an information specialist, worrying about information overload, I worry about you guys, and it's about trying to get that balance. So there are certain tools that work for certain people. So I you know, without speaking to an individual and seeing what they do and how they work, it's hard to say. But I would say Mendeley. What I would say about academia in general is it needs more people supporting researchers. In teaching, we get learning technologists now. You know, they are very valuable people, and they do a lot of work because they realise that a lot of lecturers, teachers, especially ones who are also doing research, don't have the time to go and set up a camera and make a video themselves and edit it and upload it onto YouTube. It's not realistic. It's not a good use of some people's time and money. So we do need, I think, more support for researchers. We do need more people that aren't necessarily, you know, like Nadine is a professional in her own area, a researcher in her own area, and a lot of stuff she'll do is off goodwill. You know, it's off her own back. She doesn't have to propagate the ideas to other people. It's just that she wants to help people. I want to help people. You know, my job is not all entirely about this. I do a lot of other stuff. I teach information skills. I teach research skills. I talk on health apps, on health information. So a lot of mine can sometimes be on goodwill. So that's the problem, that I think we need more support for you guys, and it's identifying who does that. Is it the library? Is it the research office? That discussion's not happened yet. And I wrote an article, the one that I showed earlier from the LSC, where I said that social media is a ticking time bomb for universities who have not got their heads around websites yet, because they've made these big, humongous websites where they drop everything in, and then you go to a staff profile page, last publication is 2011. So if they're struggling to update that, everything else is probably struggling, and that's because I think there needs to be more support and help. But that takes money and investment, which comes increasingly harder to come by. But that's my personal opinion. So I'm not speaking on the behalf of the University of Sheffield.